This is the Disturbing the Peace podcast with your hosts, Justin Lanero and Reuben Stanford.
Yo, Rube, we got another Sunday night here, and all I'm seeing on social media. Well, first of all, it's Easter, and I hope you and yours had a good time. What is up with all this Game of Thrones talk? You go on social media. I've never seen it. I look at it like one big series of like Lord of the Rings, and I've never seen that either.
Right,
not
right.
related to that wacky shit, but I like there's people that have.
I mean, it's
like
fantasy. Yeah, fantasy. It's like a big movie night. It's like we turn the lights down in the house. You get everybody sitting quiet, try to just enjoy that fantasy moment. But I'm gonna give a big shout out to the Game of Thrones crew, because my family, we have one show, it seems like every year, that we'll just sit down and just digest together. We'll binge on, and Game of Thrones happens to be it. And
cool.
Yeah, we enjoy it. And but I hope everybody had a great weekend. Spent some time with the family. I think that's always most important. I just try to make sure that I spend time with my family. And if it's a day, whether I believe in the holiday or I rock with it or not, I just try to get together with my family and spread love. So
no doubt.
Now I'm here with my other family, so let's rock,
Yep. Absolutely. Sugar highs. The kids were eating candy at 8 o'clock this morning, bouncing off the walls. I got you with the Game of Thrones talk. When Mitch, I can remember. Yeah, I remember back in the day we used to puff trees and watch The Sopranos.
Oh yeah, man! And The Wire. The Wire.
Yeah, The Wire is one of the greatest shows of all time. Underrated.
Crazy.
That was my joint. Avon Barksdale.
No question.
Omar coming. Yeah, Omar
is coming.
Yep. That's my joint.
Oh yeah, easily one of the best shows of all time for certain. Hey, Mitch, what is breaking?
Word up. Not everyone was just sitting around waiting for Game of Thrones to jump off this evening. A young man in New Zealand by the name of Charlie O'Brien got busy starting last night or Friday even, because he was on a mission. His mission was to set the Guinness World Record for consecutive hours swinging on like a kid's swing set. And he did it. He broke the record. He used 32 hours and counting, and got to 33, and so he's probably the latest Guinness World Record holder. So congratulations to Charlie. The intestinal fortitude it takes to put up with, the boredom. You don't know whether to kick high and lean back. You might just want to mix things up and twist yourself around a pretzel and let it unwind after a while. But no, he stuck to it. Got himself some massage on certain intervals to keep loose, stay hydrated, took a bathroom break, and got it done. So big ups to my man Charlie O from Napier, New Zealand.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He kind of, little breaks and all this. I mean, I feel like you're going to do it, you got to do it. I mean, he's 16, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Crazy shit happened in New Zealand, but he was able to eat his ginger nut biscuits and took some seasickness tablets. So he was in it to win it. He was in it to win it. He had energy shots, but it was like, but then I started, and I was like, he's having like a 5-minute break every hour, and then he used the bathroom. So is he really on the swing for 32 hours? I mean,
true.
It's kind of like the dude we were talking about a couple of weeks ago that wouldn't eat the dog food, but he would eat dog biscuits. I mean, kind of half-stepping. But he won I figured he would be on the swing for 33 straight hours, maybe have somebody like feed him something while he's kicking his legs, but he lost circulation. I mean, I don't know what do you think prompts like people want to break records? What's it like? Hey man, we're just gonna fuck around on the swing today, and I'm just gonna keep those legs going. And you know what? This was pretty fun for 20 minutes, but I'm going ahead and why don't we try 33 hours? Like boredom or?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think my first thought is, was he high? Like who the fuck is doing that shit? Who the hell is out there trying to get on a swing set for 32 hours. First of all, if you got that much time on your hand, you need to go get yourself a part-time job, young man. That's the real deal. I mean, everybody should be great at whatever they can, whatever they find in their heart that motivates them. But this is some bullshit. You don't need to have people massaging your legs so that you could keep the circulation flowing. You need to get your ass up off the swing. You're not a toddler anymore. You're not an 8-year-old. You don't got no business being on a swing set.
32 hours is considered full-time employment, sir.
Come on, so man. 32 hours.
He could have worked a full work week, generated some coin, but he was and got he. You know
who the hell was over there motivating this dude? Who was feeding him? Who was feeding him his little biscuits and giving him energy drinks and hot chocolate? This is some, this is, first of all, let me just stop and say, this is some white people shit. This is white people shit. I ain't no reason for nobody. First of all, white people are the only people I know that's really out there talking about they breaking records, talking about Guinness Book of World Records. Isn't this basically some shit to make white people feel good about themselves? Let's be honest. Oh, no black people out there swinging on those sets. Who got time? If you're a black person, you don't got time to be swinging on those swing set for 32 hours, man.
Yeah. And if you are, you're somebody's going to come and bother you and tell you to get off the swing or something. My question is, what is a ginger nut biscuit? I mean, that sounds fucking disgusting in itself, but he was having hot chocolate and energy drinks. It's, hey, New Zealand's on the other side of the planet. I feel like we did another story with from New Zealand. It's you couldn't get any further from where we're at. So, a lot of different things. People go missing in New Zealand and Australia, and there's kangaroos jumping around and shit. We don't even, I guess, to my understanding, it's a beautiful place.
I understand it's a beautiful place. They obviously have a lot of time in their hand. They obviously have a culture where they have just an opportunity to relax. Maybe it was just a leisure thing. I shouldn't knock it. I am going to stop and say, I know good and well, if I got to take Dramamine to keep from getting sick to pull off a stunt like a 32-hour swing, it's just not for me. But hey, this kid did it, 16-year-old. He's got a medal. He's got an accolade next to his name. Hopefully it'll get him into a college of his choice.
Yeah, good job, Charlie. Hey, gentlemen, episode 10 of the Disturbing the Peace podcast. We are available just about everywhere. Reuben can be found at Real Sports Porn on Twitter. Myself, Justin Lanero, at Justin Lanero on Twitter. Mr. Mitchell Hurd, our executive producer, can be found at Strongjevity on Instagram. He's got a Facebook page. He's on Twitter, but that is thirdly. Rube.
You.
We got a menu tonight, man. Look, and the first thing I want to talk to you about is sports. Big part of our lives, and that's exactly what connected us to come together to do this project. So why not talk about it? And we will talk about it come football season. DraftKings is going to be sponsoring this podcast. So we will have a football section implemented, as well as Mitch's weekly health beat, which we are going to forego this evening. Look, sports, I think the older I get, I think the wiser a lot of us get. I don't think there's any question that there's been sports games that are rigged, and there's some conspiracy theorists. I think there's lazy terms. I think critical thinker is the better term. Digging into this and thinking about Michael Jordan and his 1-year hiatus from the NBA, was that because of his gambling addiction? Did Stern say, hey, take it off while the heat dies down? It was a retirement, but it was more like a suspension, but like you're not going to tarnish. You don't want to tarnish the brand. Look, going way back to the Black Sox and, Donahue, the NBA official, that he wrote a book. And I can remember watching Tim Donahue on Twitter. And Tim Donahue was the official that was thrown out of the NBA. And he go on Twitter sometimes and live stream an NBA game, and verbatim, he would forecast exactly what was going to happen on the court. Boom. And be, wow, he was doing that. Somebody threw him off Twitter or what, but that was pretty crazy. So I think games can be changed by an official. A lot of things have to do with ratings, generating money. My question to you, Rube, is it inconceivable to think that there have been games, and there still are games, that are rigged? I mean, look, not the Boston Marathon bombings went off.
Right.
Okay. And the Red Sox weren't that good of a team that year. And all of a sudden the Boston Red Sox win the World Series. I mean, I'm not trying to be ignorant.
This is one of the conspiracy theories. Just as we've been talking about conspiracy theories, and I'm glad this is one that we can tackle here on the show. I'm not quite sure. I definitely think finance and money plays a big part of it. I think there are opportunities for people to just sit down and say, hey, I've looked at this. I can tell it's been scripted. Some of the greatest comebacks in history will bring truthers out that will say it's clear that the major four are a part of this. It's run by the mob, the mafia, and government. So, I'm always interested. I think you have a brilliant mind. I love hearing your commentary about sports, and I'm dying to hear how you're going to piece this together on some of the ways that you think the cash cow, the basketball or football in particular, can be rigged. I think what I will say, the one sport that I do watch, and I'm always like, this is some bullshit, this shit was rigged, was boxing. And I think boxing, I think that's the amount of the feeling that viewers stepped away from the game every time they walked away from watching a boxing match and seeing how the scores were, the matches were scored. I think that was one of the main reasons why boxing hit an all-time low within the last 15, 20 years, and we don't have that same energy around boxing the way we did during the 80s, the 90s when Tyson was fighting.
Yep.
And I think people just got tired of feeling like the fights were rigged. They weren't competitive, or if they were competitive, the actual scoring didn't match up to the fight that the people feel like they watched. So, but what do you think about, like, to me, the big four is really what we're questioning. We're talking about hockey, basketball, baseball, and football. So in what ways do you think that the game is rigged? Outside of that kid Donahue, man, he was just, the NBA was dope. Let me just say this. The NBA was great. That was one of Stern's greatest accomplishments. The way that the PR team stepped in there and they swept that under the rug, because honestly, was it just one ref? They made it seem like it was just one ref that was involved in this scandal. It just stopped so quickly and they brushed it under the rug, and he was like, there was no, that story really didn't catch any steam at all. So I will just say Stern and his PR team was able to, keep us from looking at the NBA the way I think we look at boxing, because had more people really had that story caught the legs that it needed, I think the NBA would not be in the place that it is today.
The officials meet before every game, and they can, it's a fact that players have been targeted. If you're an asshole, there are players like Rasheed Wallace. He used to get teed up all the time. He didn't help his own cause, and they're watching you. They don't like you. You pissed them off, and they come together. Things can be. It's a whistle. Things can go under.
But why? So let me just ask you this: what's the reason why? If you're going to ask, okay, and who benefits? Is it right? Like
the corporation. I mean, you look at. Do you want to see the Utah Jazz and the Washington Wizards in the NBA Finals, or do you want to see the LA Lakers and the Boston Celtics? I mean, what's going to generate more money from? And it's all about ratings. It's everything comes down to ratings. You don't think that the NBA tonight, with Mitch and I were talking about before the show, LeBron James is not in the playoffs. There was no way that the league thought that he would not be in the playoffs, and it has to hurt. Similar to Tiger Woods we were talking about. It's got to hurt your bottom line. This is Tiger Woods doing what he did last week is enormous, and it's going to be enormous for ratings. It's going to be enormous for the bottom line. Look, I will go as far as saying that the New England Patriots, I grew up a New England Patriots team, fan, to a degree. All right. And they were awful. They were absolutely awful. Then, now all of a sudden you have a narrative that's being spun. The Patriots seem like they win every year. Patriots, so that we can generate on a national level patriotism. You got this guy, Tom Brady, that came out of nowhere, almost manufactured like a robot. He was this googly kid from Michigan. He's married a supermodel, and he's going to go down as the greatest quarterback in NFL history. It's not even close. So I'm looking at things like that. Like, it's good for America and whatever narrative or just war, what we're trying to be distracted from, because a lot of the four major sports are essentially distractions. People look at them. There's a lot of turmoil within. There's there's all types of suspensions. There's bullshit, but generally why we watch sports is to keep our eyes off of real life shit. Like, and
Right.
I'm a firm believer that everything, and I would think that the three of us could be in agreement with everything. Everything has money attached to it, and primarily ratings, merchandise, shit like that. So it's very, if you look at the NBA every year, there's 4 or 5 teams that you can say right at the beginning of the season that those are the teams that are going. Look, the Celtics swept the Indiana Pacers today, and look, it's only going to go so far. I mean, they're not going to. It's only the Celtics. They're not going to win the championship. It's just not going to happen. I would bet everything I have it's just not going to happen. So again,
so what's your reason for the Celtics not being able to pull it out? Based on the idea that it's not.
The West is too strong. The West has been. The West
is it something that the NBA doesn't want? Because those are the areas that I've been watching sports all my life, and it's like, okay, say the Knicks are horrible. The Knicks are horrible right now. Right, they're horrible right now. I remember when Yao Ming was coming out. People were like, the NBA is going to make sure that the Knicks get Yao Ming. We have an Asian community. He's going to end up there. Ultimately, he ended up in Houston, which also had a huge Asian community. But everybody believes that the Knicks will get a player because the NBA cannot survive without the Knicks being good. And that's actually, I don't see how that people could, you don't have a leg to stand on. The Knicks have been bad now for almost 15 years. It feels like almost 20 years.
The owners is terrible. And you would think that New York City, the kind of the Hollywood of the East Coast, would be a team that you would want to. And look at the Lakers; they're in rebuilding, and I think that's a big reason why LeBron James went there. Hollywood, young team, take a young team on his back, and then sneak in the back door into the playoffs, which would be huge. But look, I've watched the Celtics. The Celtics, they don't have any leadership on this team. You have Kyrie Irving. He wanted to break away from LeBron James. He's not that great of a leader. Nobody really wants the baton. So it's only going to go so far for the Boston Celtics. I think it's you have a powerhouse in the Golden State Warriors, and that's just the way the NBA is set up. Now, if you go to hockey, I would tell you that hockey is pretty much a lucky sport. I mean, there's almost too many upsets in the NHL playoffs. But as far as the NFL, there's you got to ask yourself, the New England Patriots is there something more than meets the eye? What is being hidden from us? What's what narrative is being, and over the days of the San Antonio Spurs, that comeback with what happened with the Patriots a couple of years ago over the Atlanta Falcons, 28-3. I mean, come on,
absolutely,
come on, come on. I mean, really. I mean, seriously, we're talking about the NFL here.
Right.
28-3. That is 25 points. That is a 4-possession game in the NFL. Yeah. And the clock is winding. So
not supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's improbable. So
improbable. Look, in the biggest game of the year.
I mean, again, you got to critically think. You got to think that there's more. But we're just, generally speaking, in my opinion, we're a society of non-critical thinking conformists. People want to be like the next guy. They don't think outside the box. They don't have podcasts like we do to talk about shit that we talk about because it's uncomfortable. We want to make people go ahead.
So you think that we're just basically sheeple, and the mob is fickle, and no matter what, as long as Caesar controls the mob, he can control the nation. And he can control the narrative through media and through sports as distraction, while the real underhanded, dirty shit, good stuff.
Absolutely, and there's absolutely, and it's money driven. And look, there's going to be some curveballs once in a while. You're going to have some fluke teams that win. It's going to be a cute Cinderella story, but at the end of the day, it's going to be certain things are pretty damn predictable. And over the last 20 years, it's been the Patriots. who are
Yes.
historically awful. We're not talking about the Chicago Bears, Rube. We're not talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're not talking about the 49ers. We're talking about the Patriots. Patriotism has been a narrative that's been slung around this country.
Shucks. I see where you're going with it.
Do you know what I'm saying? And here's white Tom Brady from California. It's just, look, there's more than meets the eye. I think it's time that, and like you said, Rube, boxing, we've seen people take dives. We've seen decisions and gone, how the fuck did he win that fight? Or how did he lose that fight because of a couple knuckleheads that can easily be paid off? Well, unless you want to touch any further on this topic, we can move right along.
Well, let me ask one question. Okay, so first of all, if indeed, like, let's take the Falcons past Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. If the motive is, okay, we're gonna fix this game because we want to keep on pushing that narrative of, like, Patriots, you know, always being the champions, coming out on top, why let it become so absurd, 28-3, where a critical thinker or two could be like, well, this is obviously fixed. No one comes back from 4 scores down in a half of a football game, let alone the Super Bowl. Why not just keep it close with calls? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not make it 14-13 at halftime? Like, why let it get to 28-3 and then say, okay, now we better step in, boys, and blow some calls or miss some shit, you know? Like, that's why that, to me, doesn't, you know.
We like the Braveheart story. We like Mel Gibson and Braveheart. And if anybody has a chance to overcome 28-3, it's the Patriot, Tom Brady. And I'm sure a lot of people shut the game off. I was going to go get a milkshake and be like,
wow.
There's no getting back at Ed. But everything had to click into place perfectly, like a slot machine or a roulette table.
Okay, what about the Edelman catch? That shit was 1 in a gazillion. Without that, so, I mean, you can't fix that. Like, you can't stage that.
You can't. And you can't. And a couple of the Giants' losses, I mean, there were some.
Exactly.
The David Tyree catch and the Manning was in the grass and on and on and on. Again, there's going to be curveballs, but money talks and bullshit runs the marathon. Okay. And that's the bottom line for most of this, in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of Rube said all the time, everything's bullshit, a lot of bullshit. Every single one of our childhood favorite baseball players were all on juice, turned out. You know, Barry Bonds went from a doubles guy to a home run hitter. You know, and you're not supposed to get better over time. Sammy Sosa hit 60 home runs 3 years in a row. Nobody had done that since. Maris hit 61 in 1961, but it was come on, Sammy Sosa, and then he dyed his skin
bleach cream Sosa.
But it sold. People want to see home runs. I mean, and now all of a sudden you have 40 or 50 is great, but I mean, it's because it sold. It put asses in seats. Nobody wants to see 10-3 football games anymore. People want to see, Tecmo Bowl with Patrick Mahomes going ham, and I'm sure that the people trying to generate money are not happy that Tyreek Hill might be looking in after losing Kareem Hunt. You know, which these are just stupid things that could be prevented, but that'll hurt the bottom line as well. So you can see a Chiefs team that might look a little different on offense. I mean, I'm just saying, you got to look a little deeper into things, and they're not going to make it blatantly obvious with every single game and every single World Series and every single Super Bowl, but there's going to be curveballs. But we're generally speaking, most of us are too fucking stupid to have conversations like this, or we're afraid because the truth hurts, and it's, you don't want to be watching something and being a fan of something your whole life to think there's such purity, and then 20 years later find out that what you were watching was bullshit or it was rigged, because that could be discouraging. And it's like it's bullshit. You don't want, you want to believe that what you were seeing was pure and beautiful, and you're a fan, but you were getting played the whole time, because the owners don't give a shit about you. They really don't give a shit about the players. So
you're the type of guy that want to see the Generals beat the Globetrotters at least once.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And from a corporation standpoint, I mean, I root on these little guys. When when people are striking a little, like I like a good strike within a union. I like people to stand outside of stores with signs, and then I like to see a week or two later, I like to see the corporation lay down because they don't like the heat because of all the scrutiny that's being built up. David and Goliath. I'm rooting for Mel Gibson and Braveheart, and I think that given what happened after 9/11 and shit like that, Tom Brady was a beautiful story for the Patriots, not the Baltimore Ravens, for the Patriots, because we're such a patriotic country group. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he's a guy everybody wants to cheer for. He's good looking, and
so what do you say about a guy that says, "Hey, I want to be like Tom Brady. I want to follow my passion, and my passion is to be the next great star." What do people need to do? What do you think is the recipe to moving forward and following your passion and having to deal with maybe going into a field like sports or saying that the stock market is rigged or the cards are stacked against me in the medical profession, because I know good and well that they don't really want me to cure people or heal people, because you wouldn't have a McDonald's on every corner if you didn't want the people to be sick and full of cancer. And, so the cards are stacked against me in a lot of different fields. What do you think? What do you say about following your passion?
Following your passion is, and real quick, before I touch on that, the Stars had to line up for Tom Brady and that whole narrative. It was a 6th-round pick. Mm-hmm. You play for Bill Belichick, who is the Albert Einstein of the NFL. This man has libraries the size of homes. He's a historian. So it's synced up, and I don't think Tom Brady would be who he is today without Bill Belichick. Working with a genius, and that's not to take away from Tom Brady. I think he is poised, and he has that intangible of calmness. But, he's had pretty good offensive lines and smart people working with him to kind of help him. And if Drew Bledsoe didn't go down, wasn't swimming in his own blood because of the hit from Mo Lewis.
Mo Lewis, New York Jet, baby.
So So
the Jets put the Patriots on top. We're going to be the team that had to take them down. It's got to be us. It's got to be us.
But as far as pursuing passions, they say if you never work a day in your life, well, if you do what you love, you're never going to work a day in your life. And it sounds cliche. We've heard so much at this point in time. And the fact of the matter is we got to work. We got to work, and not all of us do things that we got to do, but we do what the fuck we got to do to eat and to help our families eat. For me, right? Like, one thing that I've always been loved has been fantasy football. You know this group,
yes.
Okay, so today, 6 years sober. Or when I got sober, I was like, I gotta I'm gonna have to do. I want to do something. I don't drink anymore. What am I gonna do? So I started writing. I worked for free a little bit. Writing columns for a company out of Minnesota called Fantasy Football Beast House, and I networked, and I networked, and I networked, and I leveraged Twitter followers, and I networked, and I played in the Scott Fish Bowl, the biggest fantasy football league in the country. And the magazines that I used to dribble on with the booze falling out of my mouth on the beach, now I'm in the magazines, and this will be the 6th year I'm in the magazine that could be found at every Barnes & Noble's, Walgreens, Stop and Shop from Hawaii to Maine, Football Diaries magazine. So I was like, you know what? You got to set out. You got to do it. Now that, again, it's a crowded industry at this point in time, but I think it's really important, Rube, to do something that you love, because life is just too fucking short. That's right. The bottom line. So I am not going to quit my union position to say, Rube, because I've been, people hit me up on Twitter, Rube, and go, look, the one guy said, I got a government job a couple of years ago. He's like, I make a ton of money. He goes, I'm going to throw in the towel and I want to take up fantasy writing. I said, hey, I don't know what the fuck you just smoked, but you really got to bring yourself back in.
Pump the brakes, fella.
He was dead serious. And this guy was almost like, Kevin Spacey in American Beauty when he quit his job. He worked at, there's another asshole, Kevin Spacey, but worked at McDonald's. He, he said to the manager at the fast food place, I want as little responsibility as possible. You have to be realistic. Right. I think having a nice side hustle and pursuing your passion is huge. And so what's your take, Rube, on pursuing passions and, at this stature of your life?
I mean, I just think most people are not going after what they want. People say it. They say what they like and they say what it is that they wish, but I don't think enough people are going after what they want. I don't think enough people believe in themselves. We have a couple of unknowns. We have faith, we wish, we pass a lot of our desires off on God. I mean, I think a lot of people just will say they tried something, it didn't work the first time, they weren't persistent, then it wasn't meant to be. God knows when it's time, and he knows when the hour is, and he will determine what will be shall be, you know. And so therefore we start talking ourselves out of what we should do, which is just putting forth that effort and work. I mean, it takes a couple of things. Faith requires you to believe in something that you cannot see. And when you think about it, fear also demands you to stop and think about something and you don't really see what the outcome is, but you're so afraid that you don't move forward. So I just think that if people could take the moment, pursue the passion, I mean, find what drives them, what's burning on the inside. You know what you kind of know what you're meant to do in the world, because you would do it for free. If it's something that you're willing to do for free, then it's probably the thing that I think you should go and follow. If the idea that you have doesn't give you chills, then I would say definitely don't quit your unionized job or go for broke, push all your chips into the middle of the table, going after something that doesn't even get you excited. If it doesn't get you excited, how the hell is it going to get somebody else excited? So I think you should find mentors, find people that are doing what it is that you want to do. Every roadmap, there is no blueprint, but at least you can follow and say, hey, I studied the greats. Right now, J. Cole got a hot song out, Middle Child, he says that line in there, and I think it's true. I think you follow the greats, you study the greats, and you find yourself a mentor. And the only person that can limit you in life is yourself if you put the shackles on your mind and if you don't believe that what your thought is that you could turn into reality. Once you think something, I think the next step is being able to take it from your mind, the picture you see in your mind, and then make it tangible and put it in your hands. So if you have a passion, that's definitely what I'm doing right now. Every day I'm trying to just step forward and step out on positivity. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm living it with you. I'm living it with my wife. Mika and I are doing different things in our community that just require us to say, hey, we believe that this project will work, Right.
And I think the common denominator is trying to help people, right? From I was dropping the kids off tonight, and I gave a guy $1 at a light. He has a sign that said "fell on hard times," right? And Easton goes, "Wow, what?" Because kids, they don't stop asking questions. Why? But this is I wanted to give him an honest answer. Gave him the money. Hey, look. This guy needed the money. We try to help people out. This is what we're doing. So that maybe in a couple of years he'll remember that I did that. I wasn't doing it for any fame or any of that. Here's a couple of dollars. Hopefully this guy goes and gets something to eat. And my son looked at that, and that's important. You want to help people, right?
Right. My son looks at me. He looks at me because I look at the people and I go, you can get up and get out there and go to work. But my son says, it's funny. He says, I want to hear their story. He's into the story. And then he'll look around at all the adults on the train and go, damn, nobody's going to give any money. You heard the person's story. No one liked the story. So he's all about the story. One day a person came through the train. They didn't tell a story. And he was like, he looked at the lady and was like, do you want to say anything? Before I go in my pocket, do you have anything you would like to say? No?
Yeah.
He was
people's stories, right?
Yeah, he was a little hesitant. Right.
We don't know people's stories. It's like when we're driving in the car, and I fucking hate people can't drive and they irritate the shit out of me. I've been driving for 20 years. I never gotten a ticket, never gone in front of I'm always paying attention. Watch me get into an accident tomorrow, but we were quick to lean on the horn and shit like that. We don't know what the fuck was going on with the guy in front of us. He could have just buried his wife. He could have just buried his cat. You don't know what his story is. And that's, do I agree with you that some of these people that you see every day begging, geez, all this time you spent with the sign, damn, you could be flipping burgers, something like that. I mean, that's kind of ignorant to say, but I mean, the time does add up where you can
absolutely.
We don't. People fall on hard times.
But
sure.
that's the area for myself where I I have to keep my son as a pure heart. He hasn't been jaded. He hasn't been affected by society the way I have. So when he says a statement like that, he has money. He'll donate. He has a charitable little piggy bank. He has his own main savings bank, and he has his investment bank. So he has 3 banks. The basic 3 little piggy banks that he works with. And when he wants to make a charitable effort, he'll make sure he puts some money in his charity bank, and he'll give it out to whoever he wants to. I shouldn't saddle him with my baggage. I shouldn't sit down and say, hey, because daddy doesn't believe in giving out money on the street when homeless people or people are asking, because I grew up in a generation too where these same individuals, I'm trying to still get over the conditioning that I've been molded with, where these people were just bums. You're a hobo, you're a wino. So I have to get away from that stigma and that perception that lens that I'm looking at these individuals with, and I have to try to move and watch how my son is moving. So I always try to just stop and say, hey, how can I keep from saddling my son with baggage? How can I keep the kids from all of the kids from my daughter, my son William, Amber, Daryl? I just feel like, hey, if I have fears, so I just finished talking to you about passions and fears. I have fears. I have things that have stopped me cold in my tracks, and I haven't been able to, I wasn't able to move forward because they were my fears. So I work diligently. I am intentional with my wife in not passing along some of my fears. I also think that there are certain things that were done in families, especially when you're in middle class families. Excuse me, when you're in first, for me, you're in a poor family, and as you gain more knowledge, you move forward. And you should leave certain things in the past. The idea that children should be seen and not heard. Like I don't saddle my kids with that, because I think they need to be able to articulate their views and be engaging and have, like you just said, critical thinking. Should be able to ask questions. So if I saddle you with some of the traditions that have been taking root in my family, then you won't be the person that you need to be for the world that I can't even imagine the world that my kids are going to be moving forward into. So if I work hard, I should constantly be taking some of these steps to say, hey, what are areas where I'm handicapping the kids? Maybe I'm a little bit too protective. So what are some of the things that you think that you say, hey, I don't want to saddle my kids with something that's kind of been plaguing me, or I can see it's in my family, my mom or someone in my family's done these things, and it just seems like from generation to generation, maybe we just pass this baggage along.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, and I'm often going to talk about alcoholism on this show, and there's a genetic tie to that as well. And I think that traumas and anxieties can be put down to on generations, whether it's linked to DNA and so on and so forth. Fear is it's huge, and then there's I'm going to die an alcoholic. That's the terminology. I'm going to be, God willing, I'll be sober, but I'm always going to be an alcoholic, and I suppress my fear and that self-doubt and the less than feeling with alcoholism, and taking my mind elsewhere and being kind of a jerk and suppressing all these issues that I had. So, for me, a lot of the fear that I had growing up, whether it came from losing my old man at a young age or some of the alcoholism in the household, like you said, I think it's case to case. But what I can do at this point in time, when the conversation needs to be had with my children, I can certainly put a strong emphasis on what drugs and alcohol can do to an individual, and that's nothing but harm. And it was obviously a great way for me to suppress precisely what I was going through. So I'm able to do that today. I'm go to meetings. This was a big week of meetings. You guys know I just recently got 6 years of sobriety. My recovery has lacked in a lot of different ways, but I will not give up. And I know that if I stay away from a drink or a drug one day at a time, things just continue to get better and better and better. So I can look back in hindsight when the kids when the time is right. You're not going to have to start having a conversation with my 3 and 5 year old about fear-based things and alcoholism now. But and like you said, Rube, it's a scary notion to think the world that these guys are going to grow up in down the road. But it's paramount that I have my A game so that I can embed some of these things that I've learned in the halls of Alcoholics Anonymous and learned, seen and, going to these meetings, Reuben, I cannot tell you how many people I've seen die, how many people I've seen go out, how many bad things, but also a lot of the good things that have come through this, though. So if I'm troubleshooting within myself, I'm able to implement, what I've learned later on in life into these guys when they're a little bit older in the game so that they don't have some of the fears. And, I can prevent them not from seeing, a drunk parent. I've seen that.
Right.
I can control that type of shit. So, it's a day at a time, and the conversation needs to be had, and it's going to happen often on this podcast because, at this point in my life, I'm a firm believer that alcohol and drugs are, just cripple households. And, having conversations like this and having a podcast like this is a learning experience, and you gain perspective. So, that's where I'm at. I mean, Mitch, what's your take on passing down some of your fears and into the kids? I mean, is it something that you worry about? Some of your kids picking up some of your tendencies, or if they've inherited them, or how would you go about preventing that?
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if we could raise our children to be completely unbiased, uncolored, unflavored humans that can go out and shape their own identity, their own worldview. But that's part of parenting. We bestow upon them their biases, their outlooks. We give them opportunities to shape their own, and that is probably the most responsible thing we can do as parents, because obviously we don't know it all, but it's definitely human nature. We do it as a means of protecting them. I don't think anyone, who knows they have some sort of handicapping bias or prejudice says, what I'm going to do? I'm going to mess my kid up and make them think the same way. It's just sort of like you think you know best and you want to protect them from making a mistake.
But don't you think sometimes, Mitch, that your fear, like say you have a fear of, my child being out of my sight for so long makes me nervous, gives me anxiety. So I don't allow, I don't allow William to go on the school, middle school or junior high school trip to Dominican Republic, or to do some service work, or I have to be at every event, kind of like bubble wrapping them and keeping it so that they don't really get that room to explore, to be themselves, to gain community, gain confidence by themselves. I see a lot of parents that they hover over the kids. And then when it's time, there's time where they want them to be independent and to shine, and the kid doesn't know what to do because you took the skills away from them.
Yeah, come to think of it, I definitely was like, my mom was like a free range parent. Like I definitely was just like, the back door is left open and it was like, leave when you leave and come home when you come home. Just, don't talk to strangers or whatever. And I remember I would take like the bus into Boston. I was like a skater, so I would just skate around the city of Boston all day.
We did crazy shit though. We used to boost shoes. I mean, come on,
everything.
We would, come on. You know what I'm saying? Like, but today, right? We got a different outlook. There is just no fucking. I mean, and I grew up with you. And you knew me, and I knew you. You were tame. I was not so tame. But, it was about puffing trees. It was about drinking. It was about, who we were talking to. It was about stealing, Air Maxes and all this stupid shit. There is no way the three of us today are going to are gonna, you know what I mean? Like, we know more today. We're wiser today than we were. It's not like we're out there doing these things today and we're telling our kids not to do it. Do as I say, not as I do. I mean, we know better. We know better today, and I think that comes with age. I think it comes with experience. It comes with growing up, basically.
You got it. You got it. Well, me and Mitch, Mitch really wanted to make a point of showing some extreme love. And I salute you, Mitch, for bringing this brother's name up to me earlier in the week, and I'll leave the floor to you. You mentioned how much credit this individual should get, and I just want to give you your moment because we haven't talked hip hop in a while. So, you know,
no doubt.
I love it.
For sure. You know, my guy Guru, Keith Elam, originally from Roxbury, Massachusetts.
Yup.
More commonly known from BROOK Linda Planet, when he linked up with my man DJ Premier and formed in my view, one of the all-time great hip-hop duos, which is Gang Starr. And he lost his life to illness, which I can't believe 9 years ago, just this past
April 19th.
So it's just kind of it's kind of crazy that he's not a name that really gets mentioned as much as some of the other, you know, rappers that have been lost over the years. But his influence, I mean, he was bringing conscious rap. He was bringing jazz into it. I mean, he put out a whole series of albums, you know, the Jazzmatazz series, which, you know, wasn't exclusively with DJ Premier. I think DJ Premier had a few cuts on a couple of those volumes, but he was doing like experimental music, kind of like what Mos Def was doing in the early 2000s. People were feeling that, but Guru was doing that in the mid 90s before, you know, being experimental with rap was as much a thing. I mean, there was Diggable Planets and you know, I mean, there was stuff, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying
he's like a Miles Davis, Herbie Hancock of hip hop.
Right.
Yeah. He was a smooth brother, and my guy, he had a falling out with Premier towards the end of his last days, and that kind of put a sour note for me on the end of his life, because obviously they were so tight, they had each other's backs, like you could hear it in all like their skits and their albums, like. And here's another thing that actually always blew my mind, like Primo, who definitely had nothing but like bullets in the chamber, the best beats of any producer. He chose Guru to give all his fire to, like that. Like he could have chosen any rapper, and he rocked with him all those years. So for me, that sort of told me something. You know, gave me a second to pay a little bit closer attention to what he was saying. So, rest in peace, Guru.
Definitely. Shout out to Guru. Shout out to DJ Premier. Shout out to East New York as well, because he rep East New York real hard here in New York City. He was the sound of East Coast hip hop for a minute. Morehouse grad. We're talking a big shout out to the HBCUs. Just a lot to say about Guru from the standpoint of my best friend, Dan, used to he was from East New York, so he just played Premier and Gang Starr. He had the tape, and then, like you said, played his tape until the tape popped. And it was just crazy how much, my guy is going to probably be smiling, because I think he was one of Guru's favorite, biggest fans growing up. So, and he impressed that upon me, because he drove the car. It was his Benzie box. We listened to his music. So, but I think this was a great show. I definitely want to say, hey, we've been getting a lot of love from everybody out there. We love you. We appreciate all the love, and for all the hate that we get, we also say thank you for that, because that means we're asking you to be uncomfortable, and getting uncomfortable is where it's at right now. Because if you're not in that frame of mind of moving out of where you're used to being, you're going to stay stuck. So we're just happy to be here today and say, yo, Disturbing the Peace. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I'm on.